All right. Good evening, everyone, or good afternoon. It's Friday once again, and welcome to today's live stream. My name is Gershom Fulcott, as you guys know. On the line with us, our executive leader and founder of Viva Technologies, Mr. Jason Wong, and also with us, James from California, our marketing guru that helps us put this whole thing together. So, hope you guys are doing well. Again, it's Friday, and okay, so let me since get some feedback here. All right. Hopefully that's good. All right. So once again, good evening, everyone, and welcome. And hope you guys had a good week. I know it's been a pretty turbulent week. A lot of stuff is going on this week. So hopefully everyone is safe and dealing with all the chaos and all that's going on with the stressful situations. It's been a very, very interesting week to say the least. And I know that everyone is pretty much charged up, and a lot of things are emotionally charged, to say the least, about what's going on with the protests and things like that. So hopefully we all calm down right now. We can talk about these things in a rational way and not get too emotional about it. And we do have some great news and some great things to share with you guys as far as information as it relates to Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. But, first off, I guess we can talk about what's going on this week with the riots and the protests. Mr. Wong, how has things been for you this week? How are the riots and protests and all that stuff affecting you and your family?
Well, I share with you the reason why I couldn't be on the podcast on Monday, which I was so looking forward to because we had our second podcast with the CFA, is because one of my offices got looted, got broken into. So maybe 2 hours before our podcast started, I got the call. So I had to drive up there. Obviously, within the shortest amount of time, I have to board up the storefront. Board up the back, the front. Luckily, I was able to enlist our CEO Don Vo's help to help me with that, and my son. So we spent a good afternoon and part of the evening actually in our office in Northeast to do some damage control. So I know they have some bigger protests that are planned for this weekend. Hopefully, we can keep the protest to its purpose, which is to voice the injustice killing of Mr. Floyd, right? And please spare the all the hardworking small business owners or big business, out of this. That's my hope. You on mute, Gershom. I can't hear you.
Okay, my apologies. Is that better now?
Yep.
Okay, so it's unfortunate because a lot of business that get damaged are owned by minorities, right? And so, it's hard to see that. It's to me, it's almost like it defeat the purpose, right?
Yep.
And so I think we can all agree that the majority of the people that's protesting are protesting in a peaceful way and trying to have an impact and trying to bring changes, bring about changes, right? But like in any situation, you're going to always have those people who, take advantage of the situation, exploit the situation, if you will, and cause damage. And then there have been reports that a lot of things that was done as far as damages were done by agents provocateurs, people who are coming in with no intentions to protest whatsoever. Their only intention was to create chaos and confusion and commit violence and things like that. And that's unfortunate because to me, when that happened, then the true message get lost.
That's right.
Because if you think about it, yes, we're talking about the unfortunate crime that happened with Mr. Floyd and his death, and that was horrendous to even watch that video. For a very long time, I couldn't watch the video, and then I finally brought myself to watch it. and it was very painful just to watch the video to see what happened to him. But when you think about it, most of what's been talked about right now, all the violence that happened, the looting, all the chaos, property damage, and that stuff. So when those things happen, it pretty much overshadow
Yep.
what the purpose of the demonstration was all about, right? And that's an unfortunate thing about it. But what happened to that man, I think we have to deal with it. I think that justice have to be served.
Mm-hmm.
I know people talk about the fact that he has some criminal records and things like that. I don't minimize that, but that doesn't justify him being killed that way. And
For
so
sure.
hopefully,
Mm-hmm.
His family get justice in some way. But also, in my personal opinion, that's my personal opinion, I don't think it justify going around burning down buildings, looting, robbing. I don't think it justified that. So hopefully this weekend protest, I hear that there's a big one planned for Philadelphia area.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully
Yep.
it can go through without too much chaos and damage, but we'll see what happens, right, Mr. Wong?
Well, we need the city leaders to really step up of the game. I mean, they have been not very responsive and more on the reactive side than the proactive. Actually, Philadelphia didn't really get its protests until several other cities, already organized and protested. And Philadelphia is kind of like at the latter part of the receiving end. So we should have been able to learn from these other cities' experiences and be better prepared, for this to happen. And I felt that this, city officials and the leaders definitely dropped the ball. They didn't do a good enough job, in my opinion, to be proactive about protecting the small businesses and all the neighborhoods around the city. They could have done a much better job, and instead they chose to be on the reactive side rather than a proactive, right? I mean, we can still support the protests, right? But it needed to have a lot better supervisions and with the police department and the fire department, just kind of be ready for that kind of stuff. Because I think when Philadelphia had its protests, we already had protesters, over in Minnesota, obviously, and there was a big, violence that broke out, and then followed by looting. LA was experiencing the same thing. So, we as a city in Philadelphia should have taken that, as an experience, as a potential, threat, and made better preparations for that. And the city completely dropped the ball and didn't do any of those stuff, and got to where we are.
Yeah, I agree with you. We've talked about this before, how the lack of leadership right now in our political class is very lacking, and it's not a left or a right thing, because on both sides of the aisles, I don't see much leadership at all.
Nope.
In our political class. So I don't know what's going to happen, but we need better leaders in our society, especially when it comes to. Go ahead, Mr. Wong.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Finish your point, Gersh. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say, especially as it relates to the political arena, because these are people that's supposed to be there to protect the citizens, come up with good laws and procedures, and things that we can go by, and have a decent society, have good citizenry around our neighbors and stuff like that. But I don't see much leadership at all from our politicians. And it seems like people just get involved in politics because of the power, and maybe they make some money. But in terms of going into politics to serve, because a politician is a servant. They're there to serve the citizens and provide leadership. And unfortunately, I just don't see that in today. So hopefully, we can find some better leaders to serve in whether it's city council, mayor, governors, all the way up to the president. We need better leadership. So hopefully we can we can get that at some point.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't see any beneficial agendas or or leadership that are particularly inspirational from either side of the political party. We as the citizens and everyday Joe, average Joe, we want the society to be moving forward, not to the left, not to the right, but just moving forward as a society, and we are not doing that in our current
Yeah.
system and with under our current leaderships. So it's very unfortunate. I hope that they can get their acts together, do a much better job, uh, and be proactive about protecting the neighborhoods, the businesses that are in the city, because that's with this whole COVID-19 that was going on, we're finally today moving Philadelphia County in particular moving into the yellow stage, which means we can start opening under certain conditions, right? And but now we have been hit with this 1-2 punching, like the second punch is the protest, right?
Yeah.
So even though as a small business owner, we want to, do part of our do our part to help the economy to get restarted, right? But we can't.
Yeah.
A lot of us are under fear. The city definitely dropped the ball, which is very unfortunate.
It is. And I was driving around the other day, and I'm passing all of these businesses that's boarded up, windows boarded up, and I'm thinking to myself, I hope this is not the norm. Like, I hope this is not what we're gonna have to get used to with all these businesses being boarded up like this, because it looked terrible. Imagine driving through the city and all these different businesses are boarded up. It looks so terrible. Like, wow, it's things are changing very fast before our eyes, and a lot of it is not for the better. But I kind of want to get what's your take, James? What were you guys experiencing there in California? I know that there is some big rioting going on in LA. I'm not sure if you live in LA or anywhere close to LA, but what were you guys seeing over there in California as far as the protests and so forth?
Definitely a lot of activity. I live out in East Bay, so I live near, Oakland is a little bit closer to me than SF. It's all in the same area, but Oakland was going crazy. And even towns that were considered quite affluent towns that have, upper class, people live in there, like Walnut Creek. I was surprised to hear that one of their luxury shopping centers, has the Gucci's and the Pradas and all the fancy stuff got broken into, and they got totally ransacked in like a very, very affluent, upscale town. So that was happening. So I definitely think California. I think LA is the second biggest rioting response or something nationwide. I think I was hearing, but definitely a lot of activity. I have to say, it was nice being able to retreat out to the old farm I was telling you about, which was nice because it definitely feels like the tendrils are vast and far-reaching.
All right, so. Well, we'll see what happens this weekend, and hopefully we don't have too much of all that rioting and stuff over this weekend, and we can get back to some civility as we get back to opening up business again and so forth. But so let's move forward. Unfortunate for that man to pass away like that. I don't see how you could do that to someone, but at the end of the day, all we need right now is just justice. Let the system take its place. Hopefully the system is fair. And if that police officer, we all, know what we saw in the video. So, hopefully the justice system, do its job. And if he needs to be punished, then, he gets what he deserved, because that was the wrong thing to do. Moving on. Bitcoin. Let's talk about Bitcoin. Let's talk about some good stuff. right? Some exciting stuff. So
That's right.
yeah, right. So one of Bloomberg, and you all know Bloomberg is a very big outfit that does analysis and economic stuff, and they talk about the markets and things like that. So one of the analysts is saying, hey, look, based on the historical pattern, and that's all we can do right now is look at the historical pattern, right? Bitcoin could easily hit $20,000 by the end of this year. So that's about a little bit over 6 months away.
Mm-hmm.
And we have been calling for that, by the way. Our CEO, Mr. Don Vo, has been saying that you could easily see Bitcoin hit 20,000 or more, at the very least 14,000 by the end of this year. But now Bloomberg and their people are saying that they could easily see Bitcoin hit 20,000 this year, and everything is lining up for that to happen. And right now, if you look at the charts, I'm not sure how many of you guys do any kind of trading, but when you look at the Bitcoin chart, it's actually in an ascending triangle, meaning that it's in a wedge, but the wedge is an upward wedge. So what happened in those ascending triangle is that at some point, the price is going to break out. Now, we all know the price could break down, it can break up, but based on everything that's happening right now, we believe the price is going to break up. And so when the price breaks out of that ascending triangle, it's going to be huge. And so, yes, I believe that we could see Bitcoin at 20,000 by the end of this year, if not more. I know that we've been toying around 10,000 for a while now. We pop out of 10,000 and then we get pushed back down. We do it again and get pushed back down. So one of the things I'm looking for price-wise is to see Bitcoin break 10,000 and stay above 10,000. For example, I want to see Bitcoin break 10,000, maybe go towards 11, 12,000, come back down and establish that 10,000 range as a base. And then when I see that, then I know for a fact that we are off to the races, and we could easily see 20,000 by the end of this year. I know it's far-fetched because we only have about 6 months left in the year, but I've seen Bitcoin do some crazy things before, and I don't think this year is going to be any difference. What do you think, Mr. Wong?
Well, yeah, I mean that's what we have been stating for the last several months. Right before the halving and then into the halving, and Don's a very smart guy, and generally when he predicts something, it comes to reality. So I think that's how it's going to play out, Gershom. I think you put it in a very good analogy. So.
To me, for that not to happen, at the very least 14, 15,000, and for that not to happen, then something drastic is going to have to happen. Excuse me, whether it's something like what we're going through right now with the protest, or something bigger than that. But for Bitcoin not to be at very least 14, 15,000, or if not 20,000 or more by the end of this year, I don't see it not happening. And if we all can recall, the last true really bull market that Bitcoin had in 2017, it really didn't start picking up steam until around October, November. And that's when it really started to making those really gigantic moves. And the reason why I'm bringing that up is, I know people may be saying, wait a second, it's June and it's only like 9,800. Don't forget, guys, in the year 2017, when Bitcoin hit 20,000, in the beginning of the year, Bitcoin was only $900 and something dollars. Let me repeat that. In the beginning of the year, Bitcoin was $900 and something dollars. And by December of that year, it was 20,000. So think about that, okay?
So Gershom, we in our podcast and our company, we always advocate people to mine over buying and trading, or buying over holding, right? Because it's the exact reason that Bitcoin is so volatile. Historically, Bitcoin generates its yearly gains in 10 trading days, right? So can you imagine if 365 days, 24/7, Bitcoin market doesn't close. So if you miss those 10 trading days, then you miss the train, right?
Yeah.
So why put yourself through that kind of, number one, stress, and number two, the risk? The chances of you missing that is pretty big. So the best way to really get into the game is to mine it, because then for sure that you're dollar cost averaging on a daily basis. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that I always say to people is, a lot of people that buy Bitcoin. Okay, so let's start with the fact that people buy Bitcoin tells you that, okay, they understand it and they see the potential and they understand what's going on and they realize that they need to be in Bitcoin, right? So we can agree to that.
Yep.
But the thing is, what happened is, a lot of people buy Bitcoin because they want that instant gratification.
Yep.
And from my experience, not just with Bitcoin, but in life in general, when you're looking for the instant gratification, it's never a good thing, right? You may get that quick jolt of excitement.
Mm-hmm.
But then once that excitement wears off, then you're back to square one, or even further back than square one, right? So a lot of people they buy Bitcoin because they want that instant gratification. But for those of us who are mining Bitcoin, we're looking for a more long-term benefit.
Right.
And it takes patience. Absolutely takes patience. But if you're going to be an investor, and we're not an investment company, I understand that. We're a company that sells the hardware that does Bitcoin mining. But nonetheless, you are using your money to buy an equipment, and hopefully you can get a return on your money that you use to buy the equipment, right? So let's look at it in those terms. When you are an investor, you invest for the long term, right? Now, if you want to be a gambler, that's different. Gamblers gamble for instant gratification. Investors invest for the long term. So those of us who are Bitcoin miners, we are more like investors. We're investing for not just what happens tomorrow, but what happens 2 years, 3 years, 5 years from now. That's the view that we have to take. And then once you understand that, then you realize the benefit of mining Bitcoin as opposed to buying Bitcoin, right? Because I can buy Bitcoin right now. I can buy one Bitcoin right now, and I will have just one Bitcoin. Or I can use that money and get into Bitcoin mining, and in 5 years' time, I may have 6 or 8 or 10 Bitcoin, right? So would I rather have one Bitcoin, or over 5 years' time have 10 or 15 Bitcoins, right? That's kind of how I look at it.
That's a really good way of putting it. I also look at it as, we try to encourage people to have that rich man mentality versus as opposed to like the poor man mentality. The difference between the two is, a poor man mentality is always looking at something in the short term, right? I got a meal now. When can I get my next meal? What am I going to do with my next meal when I get it, right? But long-term rich man mentality is, well, how do I make this thing sustainable for the long run, right? So that I don't have to worry about the day-to-day, right? I can truly grow this thing, It's almost like somebody, there's a famous saying that you can always, what do they say? You can always help a man fish, but if you teach a man how to fish, he'll be able to fish feed himself, right?
Yeah.
Because it's a lifelong skill. Not to go off the tangent a little bit, but with our company, we're really trying to promote people to think of this in a long-term basis. Don't try to go in there and gamble your money by buying or trading Bitcoins because most of us don't have that skill sets. Let's be honest, right? If most of us do have that skill set, then we're all going to be like super rich already. But most of us don't. How many of us are like Warren Buffett, right? That are so great at picking out stocks. Even for him, he's a long-term investor. He doesn't just, look for that short-term gratifications, go in there and buy Bank of America today and then sell it next week. He's a long-term holder. He's a value investor. Even though I know he's not, crazy about, he's not big about Bitcoins, but the difference is he has that rich man mentality. He think of, he look at things on a long-term basis. And that's what we should do with, Bitcoins. We should look at that on a long-term basis. That's why we structure the company the way we structure it. It gives people, a long-term view about how to get behind the Bitcoin, locomotive, the Bitcoin train.
Yeah, 100%. And one of the when it comes to being successful in finance, and I know we all hear it, but it is so true. It's all about the mindset. The reason why a lot of people become wealthy is because they have a different mindset. They think a little bit different than the average person.
That's right.
And it's not like they're superhuman. They just think differently, right? So most people that I've been around and reading about and exposing myself to and whatnot, they become wealthy by thinking ahead. 5 years, 10 years, 20 years even.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are caught up with only thinking about tomorrow, you are in a survival mindset.
That's right.
Right? You only think about surviving. And maybe sometimes that's what you have to do. Because sometimes you need to survive before you can think about long term, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I understand that. But you have to get out of the survival mindset and start thinking about, okay, where do I need to be 5 years from now, 10 years from now? And what are the things that I need? What are the steps that I have to take to be there? And so when it comes to something like Bitcoin, once you understand the benefit of it, then you start thinking, okay, do I want just the instant gratification of buying one Bitcoin right now? Or is there a better way long term? Because if I buy one Bitcoin right now, let's say Bitcoin is $10,000, I buy one Bitcoin now, okay, I spend $10,000, I have one Bitcoin. What if I take the $10,000 and invest it in mining Bitcoin? Let's say 5 years from now, Bitcoin is $100,000. I have one Bitcoin, I have $100,000. But if I was mining Bitcoin over 5 years, let's say maybe by that time I have 6 Bitcoin. So rather than have $100,000, I could have $600,000. But to have that $600,000, I have to be patient. I have to think about the future, and I have to leave behind the instant gratification, the gambling type mentality, and think more like an investor. And that's what we have to do. Think more like an investor, more like a Warren Buffett, right? He's not thinking about tomorrow or next week. He's thinking about 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. That's how he thinks. That's why I become one of the richest men in the world, because he's a value investor, meaning that he's a long-term investor, right? So I think that we have talked about that enough. But yeah, end of this year, Bitcoin 20,000, I see it. I definitely see it. And it may be even more than 20,000. But definitely I see Bitcoin $20,000 this year. I think worst case scenario, we see Bitcoin 14, 15,000 at the very least. But $20,000 is definitely on the table, and I cannot wait. I'm gonna be so happy. All right, let's moving on to the next topic. Go ahead, Mr. Wang.
A lot of us will be very happy.
A lot of us will be very happy. Absolutely. Okay, so you and I have been talking about this, Mr. Wang, a few times before, that even though Bitcoin, when the market crashed, when we recognized that we had a pandemic on our hands, everything came down. The stock market,
Mhm.
you know, the bond market, precious metals, and Bitcoin. But where we are right now, when you look back on the performance of all the markets out there, Bitcoin is still outperforming the traditional markets.
Yep.
And you know, and to make to paint even a bigger picture, ever since Bitcoin was invented, so let's just use that word invented, when the white paper came out in 2009, and people didn't really get involved with it till like 2010 and so forth. But nonetheless, ever since Bitcoin came out, it has been the #1 performing asset in the entire world. Of all the assets out there, Bitcoin has been the #1 performing asset. And even to this day, even what's going on with the chaos, even though the market has supposedly bounced back, right? Bitcoin is still outperforming the market. Even though we had a pandemic, we had a market crash where Bitcoin also crashed with everything else. And right now that everything is recovering, Bitcoin once again is outperforming the market. You have to love that. If you're in Bitcoin, these are the things that solidify your belief. These are the things that make you understand that you are in the right place at the right time. What say you, Mr. Wang?
Yeah, I mean, I think actually in a couple more months, we're going to see even bigger contrast as to the values of Bitcoin versus traditional equity market. We are in a sort of a beginning of the recovery mode, right? As more and more communities, cities, and states and other countries start to open up and try to restart this, global, economy engine, we're gonna really see some of those businesses are not gonna come back, right? And I think when the dust starts to really settle down, or we're gonna see a bigger contrast as to, the Bitcoin price will be even, in terms of the outperformance, the performance, I think Bitcoins would be even better than the traditional market in a couple of months. We're going to really see that contrast. Right now, today I see that the Dow just went up about 900 points or so because of the better than expected unemployment numbers. These are just daily fluctuations. You can't really take that as a solid indicator that the economy is coming back. It is slowly, but I think in a couple of months, we're going to see an even bigger contrast that Bitcoin is a better asset to hold, in my personal opinion. So
I agree with you. By the way, a lot of people are thinking that these numbers this week, that those numbers are fudged a little bit, but we're not going to get in. We're not going to get into that. But I've heard some economists that said, "Hey, man, wait a second. These numbers look like they were played with a little bit, but that's not a story." We will not talk about that on this show. But yeah, I mean, the numbers as far as the unemployment for this week, they were better than expected. The unemployment rate, I think it fell down to like 13.45 or something like that. Last week it was 14.5. This week is 13 point something. So as businesses are opening up again and people are kind of getting back to work, that's bringing down the unemployment numbers, even though people think that the numbers are a little bit the numbers are manipulated. Let's use that word. But nonetheless, we have to take it for what it is. What's presented to us is that, hey, unemployment is down. So that's always going to boost the market, right? But we all know that, I was listening to someone the other day, and he said, look, I don't care what the numbers in the stock market say, because we don't have a market. We do not have a market. The market is rigged. You cannot have a situation where you have a government or in our case, the Federal Reserve and the Treasury, that literally is printing up money and pumping it into the market. So you don't have an organic market, right? So they can make the market go wherever they want it to go. They can make the market go tomorrow to 30,000, 40,000 if they wanted to, right? Why? Because they have told us that they have a printing press and there is no amount of money that they will not print. It's limitless. So we do not have a traditional market where it's me and you going in the market, buying a stock here, buying an ETF there, that type of stuff, right? We have the government that's actually printing up money and dumping into the market. You cannot compete with that. So we don't have a market. And one of these days, all those shenanigans that's going on right now to prop up the market, because most of us, unfortunately, we think that the stock market is the economy, and it's not. The economy and the stock market, they do not correlate, right? And we're going to experience that in the very near future. We're going to see where the unemployment numbers are going to be high and the stock market is hitting record high. And many of us are going to start wondering, how is that? How is it possible to have a high unemployment and the stock market hitting record highs? Because the stock market and the true economy is not the same thing. And a lot of times we tend to make that mistake. We see the Dow Jones at 25,000, 26, 28,000, and we're thinking, woohoo, stock market, the economy is great. No, that's not the economy, okay? The economy is small business, mom and pop, right? The stock market is how many people are working. That's the economy. So one of these days, that's going to come up to roost. But for right now, we have to take it for what it is. Unemployment came down a little bit. Wall Street loved that. So the stock market goes up. But that's all fake. I'm telling you guys, that is all fake. What did Robert Kiyosaki said? Everything is fake. The market is fake. Our financial system is fake. Our education is fake. Everything is fake. So when the stock market is going up, it sounds great. Everybody's happy. But you have to understand, that's a fake market. The only true economy, or the only true, the one thing that we have right now that we know to be true is Bitcoin. And you may think, oh, you're just a Bitcoin guy. You're going to say that. You wait. I have a video coming up at the end of this live stream. I want to play it for you. And you guys will realize what I'm talking about. The only true thing that we have right now that's true to its core, that you cannot manipulate, is Bitcoin. So we'll see that. Anything else you want to add to that topic, Mr. Wang?
Well, it's a very good point. I mean, if you look at the S&P 500 before the crash, right, we were at about 3780 or so. Where are we at today? We're at 3193, so close to 3200. We are only about 180 points from its all-time high before the COVID-19, right? Imagine that. When I walk out of my house and I look around, when I drive around, up to my office, and I drive around the neighborhood, the city, when I look at the news, I just don't see and don't know how to justify a 3,200 S&P 500 today.
Absolutely.
When there are more than ever, there are more businesses that are big corporations that are filing for bankruptcies than ever before. But yet, our S&P is doing so well. I don't know how. But maybe we can. Maybe this is a page that that we took out from the Chinese stock market. Chinese stock market is at a pretty high level because the government behind it is pumping it up and keeping it up artificially. Absolutely. So it goes back to what you're saying about this is all fake. I do believe that. It's all fake because it's not centralized. It's not decentralized.
But so the thing for us all to keep in mind is that when something is fake, it can't last forever.
No.
It can't last
No.
forever. I mean, it's
Correct.
just, one of the things I tell people all the time is that one of these days, economic mother nature is going to take hold of what's going on, and it's not going to be pretty. So we can print all the money we want, we can manipulate the numbers all we want. One of these days, we're going to have the reckoning. And so the best thing that we can do is to prepare ourselves, because we have no control over the government manipulating the numbers. We have no control over the government printing up money and dumping it in the stock market. We cannot control that.
Mm-hmm.
But what we can control is what we do to protect ourselves, right? And I know that we talk about Bitcoin a lot because that's what we do. That's what our business is all about. But the reason why we have Bitcoin is because there are people amongst us that realize that we have to do something to protect ourselves. And, the algorithm for Bitcoin was nothing new per se. It's been around for a while.
Uh-huh.
But, when once they figured out how to solve the double spending, that's when the game was changed, is once they figured out that we can actually solve that double spending problem. And it's one of those things where, okay, people are saying, okay, wait a second, how come it came out right after the last market crash? Because people have been thinking about it for a very long time. And so when the market crashed, it's like, okay, we don't have time to just sit here and think about this anymore. We have to find a solution, right? And so, people roll their sleeves up and say, hey, let's figure out a way to make this thing work. And boom, here comes Bitcoin. But I'm not saying that Bitcoin is the be all end all. But one thing I do know is that we have to have something that is going to protect us from all this fakeness. And for those of us who, for some reason, just have a hard time understanding what Bitcoin is, or so reluctant to learn and understand, those of you who are in that category, I'm telling you right now, you are going to pay the price for that. You're going to pay the price for that. So to each his own, to each his own, every man for himself. All we can do is bring you the information, and then it's up to you to either take advantage of it or not. But this fakeness that we're doing, all these fake numbers, fake markets, fake economy, that's not going to last for long. And one of these days, we will pay the price for it. All right, moving on. Jason, guess what?
What?
The US digital dollar is real. The white paper is out. So, guys, look, we have been talking for a while that they are going to digitize the US dollar, right? We know that China have right now, they're beta testing their digital dollar. I mean, currency, right. Not dollar, but their digital money, right?
Yeah.
So China is beta testing that. And over in Europe, they're also testing a digital currency. And so we talk about that the U.S. That it was going to happen here, and they talk about it. We've talked about it here in this live stream, and now it's official. They actually released the white paper. I don't have a copy of the white paper. I'm going to try to find that. It's out there. It's out there. So I'm going to try to find that, and when I do, I'm going to drop it in either in a Telegram group, or we can talk about it and maybe one of our live stream. But the article was talking about it. The white paper is out. And so one thing we know right now for sure, we will have they are going to digitize the US dollar. But to me, it makes no difference to me, because the US dollar doesn't have a technology problem. It's not like, okay, we can digitize the US dollar and all of a sudden it makes it better. No, the US dollar doesn't have a technology problem. The US dollar have a monetary problem. It's the monetary problem. So they can digitize it if they want. It's still going to be fiat. Only thing is, it's going to be fiat that's more digital, meaning that you won't have these paper money, so to speak, money. I use the word money very loosely. You won't have these paper dollars in your pocket. Everything's going to be on your phone. It's going to be all digital, but it's still a fiat currency, right? They're still going to debase it. So will things be more convenient for us in terms of using the fiat currency because we are in a fiat currency system for the most part? Yeah, it's going to be more convenient. You won't have to deal with dirty paper money anymore and stuff like that. I get all that. But it's the monetary problem that I have issue with. It's not the money itself. It's the fact that it's a fiat currency and the government can debase it and continue to debase it. And they are telling us, imagine that the Federal Reserve chairman went on 60 Minutes and said to the world that the Federal Reserve, they are willing to print as much money as they think they need to, and there is no limit. I never thought that I would actually hear a Federal Reserve chairman said that. This is lunacy, right? That our own government is telling the world, like, yeah, we have a printing press and we can print as much as we want, and there's no limit. What?
Right. I think part of the reason he said that, is to quickly give like a booster shot to the system when this whole COVID-19 was hitting. So they want to make sure to calm the market that, hey, you know what? If liquidity is a problem, there's no problem here. we have the printer right next to us. All I have to do is just hit the print button, and it's coming.
That is insane. That is insane.
And let's go back to the monetary problem. It is not a unique problem to the U.S. Let's be honest.
No, it's not. No, it's not.
It has been a problem in the Europe, in the EU area for euros. It's been a problem in Japan. It's been a problem in China. Some of the biggest economies. It's been a problem all around the central banks around the world. It is not unique to the U.S. So by digitizing, the USD, that's not going to solve the issue that we have in front of us. We got to have a better fiscal policy, more disciplined fiscal policy.
Yeah. Digitizing the US dollar definitely will provide a bit more convenience for the average person. But I still believe that that's going to put a lot of power in the hands of the government, because now they will have total control over your money. Because right now, let's be honest about it. If you feel like there's something going on with your bank, you can actually go to your bank and you can withdraw your money and you can put it on your mattress. It may not be the best place for it, but at least that's your choice. You can do that. But if we have a digital currency, you can't pull your money out of the bank anymore, right? And I know that the government has mentioned before that they are not going to do a negative interest rate. But I still believe that that's coming down the pike somewhere. I don't think that's off the table. They're saying that, but I think that's coming down the pike. Because here's the thing. We have to understand, the government cannot raise rates. They tried that in 2018, December, and the minute they start trying to raise rates, the market crashed. Because they can't raise rates. And so let's think about this for a second. There's so many corporations that's leveraged, that over-leveraged with debt. And the U.S. itself is over-leveraged with debt, right? And so we are servicing the debt by paying the interest on the debt. And so are all these corporations. And so if they were to raise rates, a lot of corporations will go bankrupt because they will not be able to service the debt. Same thing with the US. If they were to raise rates, let's say they talk about normalizing rates. If they were to normalize rates to where rates are like 6, 7, 8, 10%, then we could not service the debt because the amount of money that it would take to service the debt will more than our GDP. They can't raise rates. They can't raise rates. Now rates are at zero. I never thought I would ever see rates at zero. But rates are at zero. So I believe at some point they will go negative. And I know it was tried in Japan, didn't work. And I know it. It was tried in Europe, it didn't work. But I believe that they still will try it here. So that's going to happen, I believe, at some point. But point being is that if they were to do that, once they decide to go negative rates, whatever they decide to do, if it's negative 2%, negative 5%, whatever, it doesn't matter because you don't have a choice. You cannot take your money out the bank. So if the banks say to you, yeah, we're going to charge you 5% negative. We're going to charge you 5% for every dollar you have in our bank. We're going to charge you 5% for you having that dollar in our bank. On a normal circumstance, you can say, oh, forget that. Give me my money. You can take it out of the bank. But if the money is digital, you cannot take it out of the bank. Where are you going to put it? It's not, right? So whatever negative rates they decide to do, you are stuck with it.
Put it in Bitcoin.
So, and I think that's one of the reasons. That's one of the main reasons why they really want to go negative. We may see it as it's going to be more convenient for us, but it's not for us. It's for them. It's to give them more control and to also monitor what you're doing. And also, you cannot cheat on your taxes anymore because everything is right there. Everything is digital. You can't cheat on your tax. You can't have a black market anymore because everything is digital. So a lot of things are going to change if that happens. So it's going to be interesting to see for sure.
Speaking of, the underground, economy, they're saying it's just as big. So by going digital, right? Actually, the biggest beneficiary might be the Treasury Department. Now they can tax the other half of the economy.
Yeah,
that haven't been taxed.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. They're gonna kill the black market. So the underground economy, you're gonna have to come above ground. Unfortunately,
No more underground.
No more underground economy. So
above ground, underground, you're paying taxes either way.
Tax, buddy. You can't get away.
You can stay underground, but you're gonna pay tax. You're gonna pay taxes.
Yeah, interesting times we're living in. But yeah, digital the dollar all you want. I don't care. Makes no difference to me. I'm all about Bitcoin, okay? Okay, so commercial real estate, Jason, we're going to have some problems with that because this article is talking about the commercial real estate in New York. But what happens a lot of times is things happen in the larger cities like New York, LA, places like that, and then they eventually get to the smaller cities like, Philly and stuff like that. But commercial real estate, a lot of commercial business, they're not paying their landlord. They're not paying their rent. And that's having an effect on the commercial real estate. Right now, New York is being hit pretty hard. Yep. But I think we are seeing some of it in Philly already. And I think as time goes on, we're going to see more. I know that we're trying to open things up, but even if you have these restrictions where, you can go to a restaurant, but the restaurant can only operate at 50% capacity.
Right.
You have to sit your people 6 feet apart. Right. Even in some cases, we were talking about having like a shield on the table, right? I mean, so I don't think the restaurant business is going to come back at full force. So I think we're also going to have the effect of the real estate situation going south. But there are a lot of commercial property owners right now who are in a bad spot because their tenants, who are running a business or may have a restaurant or, some kind of store or whatever, they're not paying their rent. And that's going to affect the commercial real estate. And then what's going to happen? That's going to bleed over into residential real estate as well. So we may see some trouble in the real estate market overall, not just commercial, but also residential too, because people stop paying rent, they don't pay the mortgage. A lot of things could happen. What do you think, Jason?
I think you're completely correct. I think we haven't seen the worst of it yet. It's being, it's being slowly boiling right now. I think in a couple of months, we're going to see a lot of landlords going to be in trouble. Because we already know on the residential side, a lot of the residential tenants are not paying rent. And oftentimes, actually it is in fact that you cannot evict them during this time. So what can a landlord do when they're not getting in their rent, right? But they still have a mortgage application that they have to pay. They have real estate taxes that they have to pay, right? But the tenants are allowed not to pay rent. So it is on a collision course. You're putting the landlords at risk. And when you have 10-20% of the properties that are in foreclosure, that's gonna hurt the real estate market, and it might hurt the economy even deeper if that really could happen.
I agree with you, absolutely. I think right now there is a lawsuit against the Gap Corporation, because I think they own the Gap and some other retail business, and there's a lawsuit against them because a lot of their location, they stop paying the rent. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of those landlords, that's like own malls and stuff like that, they have filed a lawsuit against the Gap because the Gap has stopped paying their rent for a lot of their retail locations. So that's just one example right there. So yes, interesting. I know that we're short for time, so we're gonna head towards wrapping up. I have an awesome video for you guys today. I think you guys are gonna love this video. Is have some really interesting historical content in terms of why we end up with Bitcoin. I want you guys to really pay attention to it. I think you guys are gonna learn a lot from this video, and really solidify your belief in Bitcoin and what Bitcoin is gonna do for all of us. So James, if you're ready, you can go ahead and play that video, and then we can come back on and discuss it for a few minutes.
Welcome back to the Kaiser Report. I'm Max Kaiser. Time now to turn to Robert Breedlove. He's been causing quite a stir in the Bitcoin and finance circles all over the world with some of his recent essays. They're really outstanding. He's the founder and CEO of the Parallax Digital. He's an amazing writer, offering big picture philosophical insights into Bitcoin and many other monetary phenomenon. Robert, great to have you on.
Thanks for having me, Max.
The essay that really just set the world on fire here, Bitcoin is as special as the number zero, you write. Bitcoin is to money as zero is to mathematics. Elaborate on this.
In the past, many numeral systems didn't include a zero. And around the 7th century, an ancient Indian mathematician named Brahmagupta, who actually discovered what he called the concept of zero in meditation. So his experience of the void inspired him to make zero a number. And by adding zero to a numeral system, it made it qualitatively faster, quantitatively easier, and less prone to error. So the zero-based numeral system, which became the Hindu-Arabic numeral system, evolved into the numbers we use today. So it outcompeted all other numeral systems worldwide because it was so much more efficient. And I make the argument comparing Bitcoin's discovery of absolute scarcity for money as a similarly profound discovery in terms of energy efficiency that's outcompeting other monetary systems.
Right, this idea of zero or absolute scarcity was a novel idea at the time, applied to mathematics. It opened up a whole new world of mathematics and way of thinking. And before that time, all calculations were extraordinarily cumbersome. You talk about various numerology systems, the Roman system, et cetera, where it's quite cumbersome and awkward. But when you add the zero, suddenly so much is possible in both mathematics and the concept itself of nothingness or the void being codified and quantified like that creates an upgrade to the hive mind, which is something else you write about, because the concept of zero, it wasn't adopted quickly in Europe. It took hundreds of years for it to make its way into Europe. It was unstoppable, as you could say, as Bitcoin is, and it became, as you quote, a sort of software upgrade to the global hive mind. A little elaboration there, if you can.
You know, we know today empirically that meditation benefits the mind in many ways. It increases gray matter and other things of this sort. And it seems that by facilitating the discovery of the void, which is symbolized in the number zero, that it actually gave us an update to our collective mind as well. I kind of look at the world economy as sort of the interconnection of global consciousness. So it's all of our minds connected and coordinated by price signals. And I just thought it was interesting that such a pragmatic and useful concept was discovered in a spiritual or through a spiritual practice. And the other thing about zero is that it not only made math much more efficient, but it also led to the discovery of negative numbers, which took us into the domain of the imaginary, and all of, basically became the cornerstone of calculus, on which all modern physical sciences are built today. So biology, chemistry, physics, everything relies on calculus to function. So every miracle of modernity basically was accessed by the discovery of zero.
And Bitcoin's proof of work technology is constantly chasing down the rabbit hole toward absolute zero, because the nonce upon which the proof of work algorithm is based is constantly getting smaller, infinitesimally smaller, as part of the difficulty adjustment that's at the core of that technology. So there is some analogy there. And it seems, your comments about the universal unconscious or the global hive mind are fascinating. And I think, as you describe it, prices give a way to coordinate that global hive mind. And that's been true since antiquity, when price signals are really the cue for how we travel, how we trade, how we think, how culture develops. And money, we put money into that mix. We had for thousands of years, the only real money was gold, because it satisfied the greatest number of people in that universal hive mind as a medium of exchange. And now Bitcoin seems to be doing the same thing. But as you point out, it's following a tried and true path of a philosophical, mathematical query by the human mind as it explores our very universe. Now, you've recently written a Medium post titled Bitcoin and the Tyranny of Time Scarcity. So what do you mean by the tyranny of time scarcity, and what does Bitcoin fix?
Historically, it's very important to understand the evolution of money. Money has to fulfill 5 critical traits. It has to be divisible, has to be durable, has to be portable, has to be recognizable, and very importantly, it has to be scarce. And historically, monetary metals best fulfilled those functions. And of the monetary metals, gold was the most scarce. That's why it became what I call global prime money, which is essentially the monetary foundation and foundation of sovereignty for governments and central banks worldwide. The innovation of Bitcoin is truly momentous in that because it is pure information, it optimizes or maxes out those 5 qualities. So information is basically infinitely divisible. It can be subdivided and recombined at near zero cost. It's infinitely durable because information doesn't decompose. It's infinitely portable because, as we know, we can move information at the speed of light via telecommunications. And it's infinitely recognizable because information is the most objectively discernible substance in the universe, like the written word, for instance. But the genius behind Bitcoin is that Satoshi combined thermodynamics and game theory essentially to construct money that has absolute scarcity, meaning that as of when the last Bitcoin is mined in the mid-22nd century, its money supply will reach absolute zero. And this was not possible with any physical money, because everything physical in the world is just a function of our time necessary to produce it. So if we could flip a switch today and make everyone on Earth's sole occupation gold mining, the supply of gold would soon soar. This is simply not possible with Bitcoin. So Bitcoin becomes a more perfect reflection of time, and time scarcity is essentially what we're competing against. That's what we do in the world economy. We trade to increase our collective time savings and energy efficiency to overcome the impositions of time scarcity.
You mentioned thermodynamics there. That would be the second law of thermodynamics you're referencing?
I refer to both of them in the piece, but yeah, the second law is the one that has the thermodynamic arrow of time. So every closed system tends towards more entropy. And we basically work against that entropy.
You talk about time, you talk about energy here, and in your essay, I said everyone's got to read the essay, Bitcoin and the number zero. Recently in macroeconomics, we've had some very interesting things going on. First of all, interest rates went negative for the first time ever in thousands of years, and oil price went negative. So here you have a situation where time is now going backwards in the bond market or the interest rate market, and matter is gone into antimatter because energy is now priced with a negative handle. What's your comment there?
We saw in the 20th century this ideological competition between socialism and capitalism, where in Soviet Russia they tried to control, they being the government, tried to control the means and ends of all production in attempts to reach this utopia. And we saw that model implode because, again, it didn't have price signals. There was no ability for their economy to adapt. And we saw capitalism here in the US outcompete that because we left half of the market open to free market entrepreneurship. But the other half of the market, worldwide, which is money, money being one half of every transaction, is still based on a socialistic model. So it's literally the fifth point in Marx's playbook. So I think what we're seeing is the unraveling of what I like to call monetary socialism, which is more popularly called central banking. And the markets are intended to generate truth in the form of prices and innovations. And when you corrupt that price discovery and technology discovery mechanism, you get these haywire consequences like we're seeing in the world today with negative rates and negative oil prices.
So to be clear, what you're saying here is that negative rates and negative oil prices are the result of not market-driven price discovery, but pure market manipulation by central authorities. Anyone who thinks, like, for example, if I watch mainstream media, if I Wall Street Journal, Financial Times, CNBC, they seem to refer to these negative prices for oil and interest rates as just part of the capitalist system and it happens, but that's false. It's not a legitimate price signal. This is the result of meddling, manipulation, and a centralization and almost a Politburo-driven communist dictatorship of markets that is crashing the global economy, in particular the United States. I think that's pretty clear now. Even Bank of America just recently accused the central bank of engaging in fake markets, right? So no one's fooled by the fact that these prices they're not reflective of any supply and demand curves out there. So this leads to another one of your tenets as a philosopher of time and money in Bitcoin. Tell us about time theft.
Yeah, sure. So I make the argument that essentially money as a technology is intended to epitomize time in the sense that we sacrifice our time to obtain money, and we expect to be able to redeem that money for commensurate sacrifices from others. So it's the way we trade our time, essentially. And when you look at it from that perspective, anyone that can centrally control and manipulate the supply of money can essentially steal time from people directly. Another way to think about this is kind of like a technology backdoor, right? It's where the central bank issuer can siphon off value slowly and surreptitiously off of the savings of everyone in their jurisdiction, or everyone holding dollars for that matter, over time. So in that sense, I like to refer to central banking as an institutionalized system of time theft.
So in other words, when prices go negative, it's a form of stealing. It's as simple as that. And the fact that you have a huge concentration of wealth amongst a fewer and fewer circle of crony capitalists, they're getting wealthy because they're stealing. And it's a racket. It's racketeering. And mafia-style capitalism has replaced free market capitalism in America and around the world. And it's resulting in horrendous and horrific social dislocations. Now, Goldman Sachs was in the Bitcoin news this week when they said that Bitcoin is not suitable investment for its clients, does not generate cash flow like bonds, relies on a greater fool to pay more in order to profit.
Yeah, it's been said that money is the bubble that never pops, which essentially means that there's a monetary premium and an industrial use case for any commodity. And essentially, gold has the highest monetary premium and lowest industrial use. That's what made it money. But Bitcoin is pure monetary premium. It's the purest form of money we've ever had. So anytime you see this propaganda coming out from, clearly entrenched interests like Goldman Sachs, just ask yourself the question, what is money? And keep following that rabbit down the rabbit hole. And I promise you'll land on those 5 critical traits of divisibility, durability, portability, recognizability, and scarcity. And once you arrive there, I think it becomes very clear that Bitcoin is the most perfect monetary technology the world has ever had.
Yeah, and it's ironic because Goldman Sachs sells negative rate bonds that have negative cash flow, and they're caught time and again stealing. So I don't know what gives them the right to say anything. All right, Robert Breedlove, thanks for being on the Kaiser Report, and that's going to do it for this edition of the Kaiser Report with me, Max Kaiser, and Stacey Herbert. I want to thank our guest, Robert Breedlove. He's over there, CEO of Parallax Digital. If you want to catch us on Twitter, it's Kaiser Report. Until next time, bye, y'all.
All right. So I hope you guys enjoyed that interview from the Kaiser Report. There's a lot of interesting things in there. How many people really understand that zero weren't included in numbers until maybe I think it's the 5th century or so. And so just imagine if someone didn't, I don't want to say invent or explore the idea of adding zero to our numerical system, where would we be today? And so can you imagine doing anything right now that involves numbers without zero, right? And so Bitcoin is going to be that intricate and that important to our financial system, just like zero is to our numerical system right now. One of the things that he said that I thought was so interesting is that money has to be scarce. Money have to be scarce. And with our monetary system that we have today, can anyone in their right mind say that our money is scarce? Absolutely not. But Bitcoin is scarce, right? And even with gold, and like I said before, I'm not bashing gold because I love gold. I think gold is great. But you cannot say how much gold we have in the world today. And just like he said in an interview, if you were to, command that everyone right now in the world, you change our job description and all we have to do is go out there and find gold, I guarantee you would find more gold. But guess what? You will never find more than 21 million Bitcoin.
That's right.
I know it sounds like hyperbole, but guys, Bitcoin is the perfect money. I don't care what anybody says. Bitcoin is the perfect money, and soon enough people recognize that. What do you say, Mr. Wong?
I agree. Take the time, guys. If you're on this podcast, that means you're interested in learning more about Bitcoins. Take the time, go out, read about Bitcoins, and then come back to us. And I think, we really, truly have one of the best, thing to offer here in terms of getting onto the Bitcoin train.
All right. With that being said, that brings us to the end of today's live stream. As always, we absolutely appreciate each and every single one of you joining us in these live streams. We love that you guys, take the time to join us, and hopefully we are providing you some useful information that you can take to make a difference in your life and how you think about things and how you think about your financial situation, and more importantly, how you think about Bitcoin and what Bitcoin can do for you, not just right now, but also for the future. So I hope you guys continue to join us for these live streams. And like we said before, if you come across a topic, those of us who are members, if there's something that you want us to discuss in these live streams, we're more than happy to do it. Just reach out to us either through Telegram or other sources that you guys know. Let us know that, hey, can you guys talk about this topic? Or, hey, I came across this article. Can you guys talk about it? We're more than happy to do that, okay? So we're going to wrap it up. Mr. Wong, before we completely wrap it up, any last words for the people out there?
I want to appreciate you guys for logging on and sitting through our podcast. Thank you very much for your support. And please go tell your friends and family about our podcast, our company, and please like our Facebook page. That really means a lot to us.
Yes, guys, please like, make a comment, share the information with those that you know. Really good information. What about you, James? Any last word for the people out there? I know you're out there in California, nice and sunny, beautiful California. Any last words for the people here?
All I can say, man, is before meeting you guys, I've always heard about Bitcoin and crypto, and I've participated in it slightly. But after getting to know you guys and just hearing you guys talk every week about all these topics, I'm legitimately Scout's honor more interested in Bitcoin and more optimistic about its future. So, it's really some good stuff you're putting out every week here.
Awesome. Thank you, man. I really appreciate you saying that. All right, guys, have a safe weekend. Don't forget to join us on Monday for another live stream at 5:30, and also for our webinar Monday night at 9 p.m. for a compensation webinar. You guys be safe this weekend. I know there's a lot going on. I know here in Philadelphia, I know there's a big protest plan for this weekend. So you guys be safe.
Be safe.
Take care of yourselves. Absolutely. Look out for your family. Look out for your neighbors. You guys take care of each other, guys. And, do the right thing. Always do the right thing, guys. I don't care what's going on. Please, always do the right thing. With that being said, guys, have a great weekend. Mr. Wong, thank you as always. You are a true trooper. Appreciate it. James, you take care. And we'll see you guys on Monday.